welcome to South First. I am Chetna Belgare. Periods are a natural part of every woman's life. Yet, talking about them openly still feels uncomfortable for many of them. With Karnataka government announcing a new menstrual leave policy where women employees get one paid menstrual leave every month. This is applicable across both government and private sectors, including government, IT, and industrial units. This policy has sparked a nationwide debate, while few calling it as progressive and few even questioning it. But today, we ask what this means for women's health, workplaces, and also equality. Joining us today is Dr. Hema Divakar, Division Director, Well Women Healthcare at the International Forum of Obstetricians and Gynaecologists, to help us understand the medical and social side of menstruation. We welcome you, ma'am.
Namaste. Thank you, Chetna.
Ma'am, for my first question, from a medical point of view, do women actually need rest during their periods or can most continue working as usual? What is it from a medical point of view?
Right. It's the most appropriate question to start with. See, when we say men and women can be and should be equal and gender gap to be bridged, there are two things that only and only women can experience. That's the menstruation and the pregnancy. Okay. This cannot shift the genders. Okay. So when we battled for the 6 months pregnancy leave, there was a lot of meaning behind that because it's a care of another new life. And then, it really is irreplaceable, if I may have to call it.
Right.
So that's a very special situation. Whereas when menstruation is concerned, yes, it is ongoing from menarche to menopause, the monthly event. It's not a question of one day. Typically, it's 3 to 5 days. And not everybody experiences significant setbacks during menstruation. For some, it's business as usual, and they can hardly, figure out any differences in their day-to-day activities as such. They carry on as if they were not in their menstrual cycle. But for some, and for a very select few, it's humongously distressful because they have to skip school, they have to skip work, they have to change their travel plans and everything that comes with it, because it's not only the physical, but also some mood disturbances and some other challenges beyond the pain and bleeding, which are the two, distressing symptoms of menstruation as we talk. So given the fact that it is not something that lasts only one day, it can even start some 2-3 days ahead of and heralding the menstrual cycle. The whole idea about just taking off from work is not the solution. First and foremost, if anybody, either in school or in college or in employment, if they have the wellness check coming from the well women healthcare space, what can be preventable, what is avoidable, and what needs to be checked in advance is the wellness space. Prevent illness and promote wellness is our mantra.
Yes.
So there could be some treatable reasons for this menstrual distress. Heavy menstrual bleeding and anemia, definitely it calls for some treatment in her overall well-being and not just relating it to taking one day off and just ignoring the root cause of the problem. So also the pain. There could be situations like endometriosis, for example, which need certain tests, certain kind of remedies to make sure that they can get on with their normal life. In fact, Chetna, the question that you asked, can they just do the activities as normal? Even in the school health and hygiene programs, we do emphasize that unlike the 50 years ago, 3 days take away and sit in the corner of the house is a complete no-no. We encourage them, even sports, dancing, routine activities, exercises, yoga. Even until today, many women have these misconceptions and they do ask us, can I do this? Can I do that? First of all, it depends on how exhausted or how comfortable you are within yourself on those days. But on the contrary, doing an exercise or yoga, for example, releases the endorphins. So they feel better. They feel a sense of relief. They are rid of the pain most of the times. And that is what we would definitely encourage them to do. Now, coming back to why we are having this dialogue today is because of the inclusion of the new policy of just one day. That's tokenism. That will not get anybody anywhere in reality. And the flip side of it, as how I would see it, when we say that in the workspace, especially, we want to be equal to men, we want to ascend in our positioning in the organizations, etc. Anybody, if I as a woman also want to employ another of the same gender, I will think, will she exploit the new inclusions which are mandatory? And on the crucial days when we would need her for an important meeting or something to move the needle forward, will this come in the way? That is a genuine concern, even if you are the CEO and a woman of a major organization. Even if we have to respect and empathize with the women, it's not only the men who are expected to do so, even we know what the problems are. But such kind of, not keeping it optional or making it a loophole for demanding unnecessary leaves on the crucial day, I don't think so at all in my mind that it could be looked
Okay.
as a great progress that we are making by just announcing that 1 day leave. It is not in keeping with the policy we would have expected the government to do. On the contrary, if they would say 1 day in a year, all the girls in the schools and colleges and all the women employees have your wellness check, it would be a great step forward. It
Okay.
would be a
Okay.
great step forward because there are many undetected, unknown issues that the 50% of the population, as in women, are dealing with. They will never go for a wellness check. They will only go for quick fixing the problem when the really trouble arises, because she's the last and the least to take care of herself. That is a given. So if that becomes mandatory, I think that would definitely be a progressive step, because there are so many preventable, correctable problems, and we can, a stitch in time saves nine. That is the
Right.
cliche adage which comes to my mind as
Right.
how I
No,
speak.
it's a very interesting take because I do agree that there is this concern about women taking advantage of this or men seeing this in a very different way, and also the whole idea of hoping that this kind of a policy will help in normalizing conversations around period health, or also and thinking that okay, this might bring in a kind of normal conversation. Or do you think this is going to be a risk reinforcing stereotypes?
I think to normalize the conversation, this is not the method this is not a brilliant method to normalize the conversation, please. Because there are so many occasions, so many opportunities, so much more in the social media now, which will give us tremendous opportunities to just speak about, periods. As we have seen the change in the last at least 20 years, and we are seeing the change even more and more. Men and the boys are also aware, completely aware of what this is. And even, the filmmakers and any kind of opportunity that you take would touch the heart, hit the head, that this is something that women have to deal with. That is, how long you will keep on emphasizing that it's a stigma. If you leave that mindset aside and just move on as one of the natural processes which have anyway to happen, but sometimes it carries some issues and difficulties with that, which in today's era, many things can be sorted out, because there's a lot of research on certain newer and novel methodologies, allopathic and non-allopathic as well, which are just not a quick fix with a pain relief, not a quick fix with a bleeding relief during only that particular period. There are many mechanisms which are being deeply studied about what are these changes within a woman's body in and around the time of the menstrual cycle, which causes so many different, a basket of issues. There may be bloatiness, there may be migraine kind of headache which is triggered off, there may be breast pain, there may be abdominal pain, severe backache, exhaustion, excess bleeding, mood swings, a whole lot of things. But there are now medications available which could more or less fix most of these things, about 80% of these. So you're good to go with your routine, and that's how it should be. Every girl and every woman should be encouraged to move on with life even during the days of her menses. When we want to inculcate that mindset, then we are encouraging them to step back and make an issue out of it. not quite
But
correct.
I genuinely want to understand what like being a gynecologist, like what are the menstrual symptoms that actually genuinely makes it difficult to work or study, and where, like, can you just list those symptoms so that people know that this is something which will probably need immediate medical help, and a certain kind of symptoms which probably every woman will go through during this cycle. So
Yeah,
can
so
you
the
just
mix of all
differentiate?
of these which I told you, okay, whether it's pain, whether it's bleeding, whether it's a headache, whether it's breast pain, whether it is backache, whether it's abdominal cramps, bloatiness, etc., will occur in may not occur at all, or may occur in varying kind of degrees
Degrees.
in many girls and women. Okay, so usually when we ask them also, we do specifically ask them, would you need to take off from school? Would you need to take off from office, so that we can gauge the severity of those symptoms?
Okay.
Okay, and many of these can be fixed because they cannot forever and ever. Now you'll say that, okay, school holiday also you should give, because the girls are in school and they are, just getting into the cycle of menses, and they're 12, 13, now even 10-year-old getting. So they may be also pulled up in school while they were absent for, the crucial days. And it's not a question of one day. This will spread over 3 to 5 days, or even sometimes a week. So taking one day off is not going to anyways help. They need the specific medication, the specific diagnosis, the specific help that they may need from the medical professionals to avert this problem. That's the first thing. And as a general rule, world over, you will say that don't refrain from any of your normal activities. But though that advice is given, if the internal situation is so severe that they cannot cope with the normal activities, if that is the case, then they need the investigations and the remedy. And to a large extent, though we cannot make it disappear, there are many mechanisms by which we can minimize so that they can still cope with their normal activities. That should be the idea and the way forward. But the two major things are the pain and the bleeding. Okay.
Okay.
Pain, many women pop a pill,
Yeah.
get relieved of the pain, and move on, which is not the right way to do. Even we would discourage that. The bleeding, yes, there could be several internal reasons for the bleeding, which needs to be. Suppose there's a small fibroid within the cavity of the uterus. It's like having a small dust particle in your eye. You see, till that is remedied, you keep on shedding tears. Okay, so if those things are, tackled, then it may be a sea change in their own symptoms. And also, not that the same symptoms will exist in the same severity throughout from menarche to menstruation, menopause. Sometimes they will show up in a big way. Stress based also, it will show even more. Okay, so a lot of things about yoga meditation is, encouraged during that phase, because if you de-stress, then these symptoms manifestation itself will become minimal.
Okay.
So early in school age, she may have had, but after her 16th year or 18th year, it may just on its own, the intensity of the pain may not be as much. So there are many facets to this issue. And as a blanket saying that one day leave, doing something great, just doesn't fit.
Okay, okay. So, I'm also curious to know, are there any medical conditions that actually makes menstrual pain very severe, and are they commonly misunderstood?
Oh, certainly, because that's why I said that everybody with the menstrual pain, you cannot say that they're making up, or they are forced to ignore, or they can just take a painkiller and live with it. We have to investigate, because everybody deserves, as I coming back to that wellness package again, is there something we can check, we can figure out, and we can solve? That should be the primary criteria. We may not find anything. Okay. So the 2, 3 things that can happen for the cause of the pain. So if this is the uterus, this is the neck of the uterus, and the menstrual fluid has to come out, there is something called the stenosis. Stenosis means it's a constriction of the opening. It's
Mhm.
too tight, too narrow. So if the menstrual fluid or the blood clot especially has to move out, then it's just like pressing the toothpaste for it to come out. You have
Okay.
to really press hard, then it comes out. So that is one issue where you can just dilate the cervix, and there is a lot of relief. The other thing is that endometriosis is a situation where there are actually the blood clots which are alongside the uterus. They are on the ovaries. They will really pain like anything unless they are medically or surgically treated. So that is another cause. Sometimes there are fibroids sitting in the body of the uterus, what we call. So when the uterus has to cramp, okay, then even the fibroids will come in the way of the soft cramping, and it will really, really hurt. That's called adenomyosis. It's a change of texture of the uterine muscles itself. So there are several reasons, actual physical reasons, which are reasons which could be treatable. They're not just functional, they're not just coming there out of nothing. And sometimes when you find nothing, it is just the nature of your uterus. It just cramps very, very badly. And the hormone makeup is such that you bleed very much, unlike controlling it with the external, outsourced hormone control. That also we need to do sometimes, because the own body's hormone programming or setting is haywire. Then we need to give the tablets from the outsourced control of this entire mechanism of so-called normal menstrual cycles. So, maybe if I reflect back 50 years ago, once the girl gets her first menstrual cycle, it's almost the time for her marriage. The
Right.
teenage pregnancies, one after another. So for 9 months, she does not bleed in pregnancy. Then she'll breastfeed for another year, so she may not bleed. By the time she gets pregnant again, because she's not using any contraceptives, life goes on and on with 8, 10, 12 children, right until menopause. She doesn't even go to work. So there is no, and she's a school dropout. So there is no question of early. So these are all new era problems now, where girls are in the school and colleges and girls are in the workplace. Okay. So like that, even at home, please tell your mom, today is your menstruation, so you take a day off. She'll not cook, she'll not clean, she'll not do anything at home. Then who is to set that rule? You tell me. Nobody would, maybe, on that day she may, whether she wants it or not, she may have to tie up some loose ends at home. So every household then should say, if it's a mandatory leave, it's a complete off for her. Maybe that would help her psychologically, and she waits for a cycle to come so that even at home or her workplace, she's off. But it's a deterrent for the one who is, seeking employment, because this will become an issue, because there will be many companies. It's an unsaid, unspoken restriction that you may be a very well performing candidate because you're a woman and you have the potential to take off 6 months if you're pregnant, and then you have another day off. And if there's a parallel male candidate who is almost equally good, then maybe a situation may come when they may choose the other gender than the women. It's a practical issue for the employer.
Okay.
Because
do you
the employer has their own concerns and tensions.
Right.
So,
This has been, this rule has been there in Kerala as well. We've seen this being implemented in Kerala and Bihar also. So, do you think, because there are discussions about how this policy has to become a at the national level. So, do you think this is going to be a, deterrent, like socially, is it going to cause problems? Like, because you're saying, from an employer perspective, yes, what you're saying is very practically, probably we can't deny the fact that this is going to happen or this might happen. Is there a flip side to it also? Like, do you think that people would still think that they are seeing their own?
If you want to take it as a national policy, Chetna, then I think they have to be checked and vetted out by a medical professional, that this is something that they cannot really cope and there is no solution for this. So she has to take off and she should not be penalized for taking off. That will be really a small subset. So it's like of course, these things can be forged, that we are not getting in there. But at least again, it gives a chance for the overall checkup on this pretext. And it will also, help the generalization of this rule of allowed to take a break because of this physiological reason, which perhaps in few of the cases has no solution. And then it's only fair that because she's a woman, she must not struggle and suffer with that and step back from her very profession itself. So that could be a proper lens or a perspective with which we could view this, and just not say, oh, she's a woman now, she will take off every month for the
Right,
menstrual cycle.
right,
Oh, she becomes pregnant, she takes off 6 months for that. Array, who will deal with this?
right.
That should never be a disadvantageous option for us as women
Correct. I
and
agree.
girls.
Yes. Right. So, I have two more questions to you. One is,
Mhm.
considering the fact that now there is this policy which is coming to be, and also understanding that there is going to probably be, this whole implementation of this. When do they then keep tab of the dates and see if it is the same every month? Because all of this is possible,
Yeah,
right? So we
yeah.
can't deny that. So
Yeah.
it is going to also add to this whole social, the stigma might kind of, be, the onus might be
Yes.
also on the,
Stigma might enhance, but more people will start talking about it. If
right.
that was the intention, that it will lead to conversations, then yeah, this will lead to conversations.
Right. That is true. So, I just want to know, like, when you're talking about pain, managing this pain, one is, like you said, wellness point of view. What are some of the checks that a woman actually has to go through? Like, if you could just very briefly tell us, at different stages, so that, the woman is ready to go through this wellness check first.
No, the wellness check, it's an opportunity to integrate her overall wellness check. There are several things that she has to check for herself. We presume that office-going women or the construction laborer will be anywhere about 20 years of age. So there are several things, including a hemoglobin, blood pressure, blood sugar, BMI, then the breast check, the cervical cancer check, the bone check. Everything anyway has to be done. But what we as OBGYNs, apart from our five senses, we take ultrasound or the scanning as our sixth sense. Almost in some pretext or the other, some context or the other, when scanning is generally done. And that is the first best pickup of checking out whether there is any treatable cause for the kind of pain and excessive bleeding that she may have, because these two really need a serious medical attention. So that is something that, perhaps if a ruling comes that we need to check out all this, then also it's a good thing. And some with extremely irregular menstrual cycles or early cycles, they will also come and express that. So that how it needs to be regulated. What is it, the preventive care advice that we have to give them? So all that, we see this as an opportunity for wellness. So if every institution and every educational institution inclusive mandates that once a checkup should be done, it's an integrated overarching approach, which is good for the girls and women.
This is
And with
done
that,
once a year. Should be done once a year.
once a year, yeah, once a year is really good enough.
Okay.
Okay. And at an younger age, once in 2 years is also good enough,
Okay.
because we just kind of try to pick up some deficiencies, some supplementation, some preventive care advice, do this, don't do that. So it's a very empowering situation where the woman herself understands that, hey, these are some simple things that I could follow and I will be much better than what I was. So that's a good thing overall. Yeah.
My last question to you is a message which you want to give. On one hand, many women probably are relieved that there is something of this sort, a leave of this sort has come in, because a lot of people, a lot of women do believe that they need this leave. But like you
Mhm.
said, I think the
Yeah.
finding out the underlying cause of what is causing the trouble to them is very important. But what is the message you would want to give them? And also, what is the message you would want to probably give the government, considering in future, like if there is something which the government is actually thinking of, then how do they take it forward?
Okay, my message to the women will be, see, most of the women in their careers want success. Okay, that's what they want to see, and that's what they're aspiring for. So, if you want to have success, then don't have excuses, because if you have only excuses, then you will not have the success. So, don't make this an excuse. You just please see whether it's correctable and whether you really need it or not. And you should take the option of letting go of this leave if it's so required. If you're not, if you're happy to work, If you can cope with it, if you're not inconvenienced, just go for it, So that is one advice to the women. And for the government, I think they should take a more broader perspective, have some of us as experts on the board as well to see many different angles. And it may not be a 1 day break, an easy solution, because there may be some who will actually need a 3 day break. There may be some who may not even need a 1 day break. So what is the kind of flexibility? How you would frame the rule alongside that, which is reasonable and which really respects the women's comfort level and the dignity in these aspects. That requires a very calculated, very mature thinking in the first place, because one rule will not fit all. That's for sure. That's for sure. So then we don't want, the general population screaming that women, they claim that, they are on par, but see the kind of excuses they're making. No, we wouldn't want to. We wouldn't want to make excuses. That's for sure.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hema. It was wonderful speaking to you as always. Thanks a lot for this wonderful perspective of good quality.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Chetna.
lot.
My pleasure too for the opportunity given. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste.